good morning, everybody. It's once again time for the House Whisperer Show right here at WWDB Talk 860. I'm Barry Reisman, inviting you to stay tuned for expert advice about maintaining your house from the roof to the basement and everything in between with a guy who knows. He knows that every house has a story. Professional home inspector Jack Milne. Jack has a great guest with him today. So let's first of all say good morning to Jack. How you doing today?
Well, good morning, Barry, and all my listeners out there at WWDB. Yeah, every once in a while I love to pull my sponsors in because without them, of course, I wouldn't be able to chat with you today. But I have an extra special guest with Rob Bowie. I tout his name and his expertise every weekend for you folks. But it's I wanted to do something that was kind of timely. And to me, timely doesn't necessarily mean on time. Sometimes over the summer months, we tend to kind of let things get a little bit lackadaisical because, we want to get to the beach or take vacation time. But at the same time, it's your home that's still screaming out, cut the lawn, paint me, insulate me, ventilate me. But one of the things we really kind of take for granted are our on-site sewage systems. And I think in the old days, we used to call them septic systems. And today with Rob, I'm going to have him kind of go through all the different varieties, but also the maintenance that is required for those varieties. So, as you all know, I always start with thanking my sponsors. So since I have Rob on the phone already, Rob, go ahead and tell us a little bit about Bucksmont Inspections.
Okay, thanks, Jack. It's good to talk with you. And, at Bucksmont Inspections, we primarily work with real estate inspections. We perform septic inspections, typically for real estate transfer, and also we design septic systems for new construction and also for repair situations when an existing septic system is failing. There are two basic roles that we do here at Bucksmont Inspections.
And how can people reach out to you?
Our phone number is 215-257-1515, and the email is bmseptic@comcast.net.
And how about a website for you, Rob?
The website is bucksmontinspections.com.
All right. Now, I want to thank Borough Exterminating as well because they're out of Glenolden, Pennsylvania, and their main forte is termite testing and treatment, but also radon testing. So if you're in Delaware County, Chester County, Bucks, Montgomery counties, reach out to Borough at 610-586-5640, and their website is boroughexterminating.com. Pest Blaster out of Hamilton, New Jersey, but they do serve both sides of the Delaware. They're involved with radon testing, mold testing, with destroying insect evaluations and treatment, as well as those pesky pest removal situations. So as I mentioned last week, I had Mike Canner from Pest Blaster at my home getting rid of some bees that grew up under my aluminum siding. So God bless them. But they're at 215-295-5555, and their website is pestblaster.com. BrainFlushGear.com, again, eclectic sportswear. You want it, they make it. Everything from sweatshirts to tank shirts to sweatpants, hats, everything embroidered, or silk screened. So you can also reach them via email at contact@brainflushgear.com. And, of course, Tri-County Inspection Company, celebrating our 30th year this summer. Our website is tcinspect.com. Local phone numbers only, folks, because I don't like that 1-800 impression. I'm at 215-295-2030 in the Bucks and Montgomery County areas, 610-296-2004 in the Delaware County. Lehigh Valley for you folks up there, 610-346-7880, and finally South Jersey, 856-853-4224. So again, I'm inviting Rob Bowie to spend some time with the House Whisperer. So, Rob, again, tell your folks how you got involved in this profession.
Originally, I, at a young age, started working for a septic service company, pumping out septic tanks and repairing septic systems. And then while in college, I took environmental studies and soils and whatnot, and started out with the real estate inspections, which back in the mid-'90s it was a little bit easier to get involved with them, and then sort of evolved into the soils and the design end of septic systems. And yeah, it's been quite an adventure for the last 20 years.
Now, I know I've got some questions here for you, but I want you to bring one point up to light. To talk about the PSMA.
Yes, the PSMA, Jack, it stands for the Pennsylvania Septic Management Association. They're a private state association that gives guidance for service providers of how to maintain septic systems. They give guidance for installing systems, and also what they're really known for on a national level is providing protocols for septic inspections for real estate transfer. They've been around since, I believe, 1989 when they first started.
And the point that you brought up, Rob, it's they've now gone national as to their protocols?
Yes, they actually they are involved with an association called the National On-Site Foundation, and they bring their inspection protocols to a national audience. In at least 10, maybe even 12 states have adopted the PSMA inspection protocols for their own states. Specifically, New Jersey recommends a form of the PSMA inspection on the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's website. So PSMA is actually really getting some traction in many states, but slowly in Pennsylvania. They're evolving with Pennsylvania regulators and whatnot.
Good. Yeah, because to me, folks, that's like me being an ASHI inspector, the American Society of Home Inspectors. They kind of set the standards and ethics in my profession. So I really applaud the PSMA's efforts. But let's move on. Rob, let's first talk about common septic systems. What's the general maintenance for what we call conventional in-ground septic systems?
Right. The most common septic system, Jack, are the old ones, the in-ground septic systems, which are primarily a septic tank with either seepage pits or subsurface drainage fields. And the number one maintenance item is simply pumping out your septic tank every 2 to 3 years, removing all the solids, and giving your drainage field a chance to breathe a little bit. That is the number one maintenance item for all those conventional older septic systems out there.
And I kind of live by the 4x2 and 2x4 rule. As I tell my clients, if there's 4 of you, you should be doing it every 2 years. While if there's 2 of you, you might get away with 4. But what's it cost to pump a system?
Generally, a 1,000-gallon tank, they're getting anywhere from $250. Some of the smaller companies, some of the larger companies are getting $275, maybe $300. And with the larger companies, a lot of those they do send out reminders and really tend to interact with their customer base a little bit more than the mom and pop companies. But the mom and pop companies tend to build up a little bit of a better relationship. But anywhere, Jack, from $250 to $300 for a 1,000-gallon tank.
See, now that's not bad because, as we all know, Rob, and we want to make sure we pass this along, the absolute worst-case scenario is allowing the solids that have settled into that tank to get past the baffles and into the field.
Right. That's sometimes the beginning of the end when the drainage fields get clogged up when that happens.
So, folks, as I tell my clients, use your anniversary date to pump the tank. Now, it's not the one that you're getting married on, but the one that you moved in on.
That's a good reminder.
Now, when you open up the tank, so what are the other things that you're looking for?
Well, when you open up the septic tank, elevated liquid levels. If the water level in the tank is too high, it may mean that the drainage field is over full. That won't be good. Or if they're pumping the tank level down and excess water runs back from the drainage field, that could be a problem that the system is hydraulically overloaded. If the liquid level is normal, and then they can lower the level, pump it out, and check the baffles, which you were just talking about, Jack, to make sure they're in good shape. Make sure there's no cracks in the tank or in the walls of the tank or the slab. And finally just go in the house and have the homeowners flush a couple of the toilets and make sure there's good clear flow from the house into the septic tank. They would be the main items we would check for.
Now, I've seen you and Don also use this like big probe, and you shove it into the earth. What does that do?
Yeah, that's what we do specifically to find the drainage field. We go out a lot of times just visually looking at the lay of the land and whatnot, and to find the drainage field, the simplest way is just having a steel probe, maybe 4 or 5 feet long, maybe an inch in diameter. We probe the ground and look for crushed stone, which is typical of a drainage system, and we bring the probe out of the ground and sort of like a dipstick checking the oil in a car and see how much water's in the drainage field, and that gives us a good sense of if the system's overloaded subsurfacely or if it's dry. And we specifically do that, Jack, in a real estate transaction just to give a potential buyer a good sense of how the drainage field's functioning at that time.
Now, one of these little things we call a flapper that we put in our toilets costs all of about $5. This is probably one of the biggest things that I've seen that can, for such a small amount of money, has the greatest detriment to an on-site sewage system.
Right. Yep, exactly, Jack. A lot of times you see them leaking, and it really pays a lot of strain to the septic system.
Well, on that happy note, how about if we take a little break here, guys?
And then we'll get back to the stuff.
Yeah, we're talking with our special guest, Rob Bowie of Bucksmont Inspections, and of course Jack Milne, who's here every week. Jack Milne, the House Whisperer, and lots of interesting stuff. We'll be right back right after some more interesting messages here at WWDB on the House Whisperer Show.
Bowie Exterminating has been specializing in wood-destroying insect inspection and control for over 40 years, serving Philadelphia and the surrounding counties. All inspectors are state certified and ensure providing their clients with professional inspections and treatments. Bowie not only performs conventional termite treatments, but also handles special services like historic buildings and homes with wells, creeks, or ponds. The client is assured that all treatments will be performed safely when you hire Bowie to do the work. They also provide radon testing in their service area. Bowie's full-time office staff is available to help you schedule an appointment. Just call 610-586-5640 or send an email request to boroinspects@verizon.net. That's 610-586-5640 or email at boroinspects@verizon.net.
Specially created t-shirts by BrainFlushGear.com offer the extreme sports enthusiast an opportunity to have a clothing line available that suits their sport. BrainFlushGear.com understands that when we get the moment where we can jump on our motorcycles, wave runners, surfboards, snowmobiles, or skateboards, it can be priceless. They offer custom artwork including silk screening, transfers, and embroidery. Speak to one of their consultants today, and they'll help you create your own Brain Flush. Visit BrainFlushGear.com or email them at contact@BrainFlushGear.com.
For your septic inspection and testing needs, please consider Bucksmont Inspections. They've been serving the Bucks and Montgomery County areas for over 15 years. As members of the Pennsylvania Septic Management Association, the Pennsylvania Association of Sewage Enforcement Officers, and the Pennsylvania Association for Professional Soil Scientists, Bucksmont Inspections can inspect your existing septic system or test for your new septic system placement. Please call Rob Bowie at 215-669-4213 and say you heard their ad on the House Whisperer Show.
Tri-County Inspection Company has been providing professional home inspections, commercial inspections, and historic property evaluations for over 30 years. For all of your real estate transactions, call Tri-County Inspections at 215-295-2030. For their New Jersey clientele, call 856-853-4224. Tri-County Inspection Company covers 13 counties, serving both New Jersey and Pennsylvania. They have performed inspections for over 70,000 clients and are members of the American Society of Home Inspectors, as well as the Pennsylvania Home Inspectors Coalition. They are licensed in both Philadelphia and New Jersey. Call 215-295-2030 or 856-853-4224.
As the temperatures gradually rise, so do the odds of all those filthy and unwanted critters invading your home, like rodents, roaches, termites, and flies. Oh my. This summer, if you want to feel safe and secure from a possible creeping, crawling disaster, do yourself a favor and call the exterminating experts at Pest Blaster for all your pest control needs, including tests for radon and mold. Please visit pestblaster.com and you'll be sold. 215-295-5555.
Our house is a very, very, very fine house.
Okay, we're back with Jack. Back with Jack. We should call the show Back with Jack. And special guest, Rob Bowie of Bucksmont Inspections. And let's pick it up where we left off.
Well, thank you, Barry. Rob, before we kick back into phase 2, once again, how can folks reach out to you and be able to pick your brain?
Thanks, Jack. Our number is 215-257-1515.
And website one more time?
The website was bucksmontinspections.com.
Thank you very much, Rob. Now, let's move on to what we call a sand mound system. What would you check differently on a sand mound that you would not have to do with a typical in-ground system?
Well, a typical in-ground system uses gravity to convey the effluent from a septic tank to the drainage field, where sand mounds built after 1983 all employ a pump to pump the effluent into the mound. So they start getting a little bit more complicated as far as mechanicals. The sand mound built post-1983 is going to have a pump. It's going to have floats, sort of like a sump pump in your basement. And then there's an alarm that if the pump were to malfunction, an alarm in the house should go off. So when pumped it, and good pumper,
they don't want to acknowledge it.
yeah. And it's a simple repair. It's just a matter of sawing it off, maybe putting a new threaded cap on it. It's really simple. But good pumpers would also just check for obvious problems out at the mound too.
Now, so my listeners understand. A septic system or a septic tank is basically one big tank, 1,000-gallon tank. But when you have a sand mound, you have a second tank before it goes to the mound, and that's your pump tank.
Right, exactly.
So the effluent basically gets collected in the larger tank, goes through the valves into the pump tank, then the pump directs it into the sand mound.
Correct. That's right. And you do have, Jack, some of the older sand mounds from 1975 when they first came out to 1983, they used gravity. So there are the older mounds do have gravity flow to them. You still see them out there, but most of them do have a pump, as described.
Now, when the pump fails, it sounds this obnoxious horn somewhere in your house. And as home inspectors and, Bucksmont, when they come out, they always check to make sure that works. But the pump replacement, what do you think? 10 years?
Yeah, that's pretty close, Jack. Sometimes you hear them 7, 8 years, sometimes 15 years. Pumps go bad. And on average, they're not as expensive as a well pump. Well pumps tend to be a little bit more expensive, but most effluent pumps for sand mounds are $800 to maybe $1,300, depending upon if floats have to be changed. So not as bad as a well pump.
Okay, I was always curious as to how much they cost to replace if you had to. So tell me about this alternate peat system.
Yes. About in our area, Bucks County, Montgomery County, Chester County, sand mounds were always many times considered a detriment because of the height and the size of them. So one of the new technologies out there are alternate peat systems where they take the sand out of a sand mound and they replace the filtration media with a peat moss that goes in a tank underground. And the mounds then are basically the low-profile mounds where they're just basically drainage fields installed on top of the ground with about 8 to 10 inches of cover. And this peat moss cleans up the septic tank effluent similar to the sand in a sand mound, but you have the peat filtration media underground in another tank, and it does aesthetically really make properties much more pleasing to the eye many times.
Let me ask you this from my perspective. Would a home inspector know if it's a peat system?
If you walk around, Jack, on a property just doing a home inspection, when you walk around the outside grounds of the property, the most common peat system in our area, they do have a green lid to the ground, about 4 feet long, 3 feet wide. It's fiberglass, and that would be a pretty good sign that that's the top of the peat tank. So that would be a good clue that the peat tank is actually there.
Good. This is what I like about the show. Even the house whisperer can learn something, right? Now, I've got here, that the peat moss has to be raked every year?
Yes, with the purchase of the peat tank, the first year, the service provider comes out and rakes it off, where you have about 4 foot of peat moss inside this tank, and if you constantly have septic tank effluent being dumped over the peat moss, it tends to get slimed up on the top after a year. So a service provider comes out and just rakes it off and fluffs it up a little bit, just so it becomes porous again. And that's supposed to be done once a year, and then every 8 to 10 years, the peat moss actually has to get removed and new peat moss put in.
What would an approximate cost be for that, Rob?
That Jack is the $1 million question. In the beginning, it was supposed to be $800, $900. This back in 2003, 2005. But when the actual time matured, 2012, 13, the prices actually were a lot more. And right now, I might take heat from the manufacturer, but nevertheless, we'll be honest. The price can be anywhere from $1,800 to $2,000, maybe $2,200 to actually pump out that old peat moss and put new peat moss in. So it does get expensive, and that's the trade-off of having a more aesthetically pleasing system than the sand mound.
Now, people, and I'm going to go off topic a little bit, but I think it's really important. People who have lived in the city and moved to the country are not used to living with an on-site sewage system. So they take a lot of things for granted, like doing too much laundry or painting the house and putting their brushes under the sink, to clean the latex paint off. What are some of the best no-nos as to what not to do if you want an on-site sewage system?
Right. Any type, like you just mentioned, Jack, any type of chemicals, paint thinners, motor oil, those items you don't want to flush down your septic system. Grease tends to clog up pipes. Additives, which we hear on TV, septic tank additives and whatnot. Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection does not recommend any type of additive for your septic tank. They're really not recommended at all. And the DEP resorts back to just pumping out your tank. So, but any harsh chemicals you don't want to put down.
So no Clorox, no liquid plumber. If you have the block toilet. What about garbage disposals?
Garbage disposals. If you have a septic tank, if a homeowner has a septic tank after 1998, the state required 2-chamber tanks, so they tend to clean up the effluent a little bit better. So if you have a newer house post 1998, the garbage disposals aren't as bad. If you have a septic tank from pre-98, and I know a lot of people do insist on using the garbage disposal on a regular basis, you pump your tank once a year. That might help take out the heavier solids content that we would find in the tank. But you can still use it. Just generally pump the tank out more often.
And that's, see, again, and Rob, we're on the same page on this. I tell clients, look, you live outside Doylestown, and if you must live without garbage disposal and you're paying $300 a year to get the pump, the tank pumped, there we go, I knew it was in there somewhere. Compare that to a sewer bill in the borough of Doylestown. You're getting away with murder, by spending only $300 to maintain your system. But let's talk quick about maybe the cost of replacing a system. I mean, what kind of dollars are we looking at today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Very informative, Jack. Good question. Some areas are real sandy soils, say down to Washington's Crossing, where we can get the actual gravity in-ground systems, permitting and everything. They can go from anywhere from $10,000 to maybe $14,000. If we get in some upper areas of upper Montgomery County, upper Bucks County, where the soils tend to be a lot more shallow with high water tables, we have these alternate fancy systems that are very mechanical. Some of the systems can be up over $40,000.
Yeah, it looks like we're running out of time, Rob, but that was the onus of this show. Some of the things that we kind of take for granted that is on our property, we have to learn more about. And so I think the moral of the story is pump that tank at least every 2 years. If you're willing to spend a few bucks to save a ton. So, Rob, I wanted to thank you for being on the show today. One more time, let me have that website and phone number.
The phone number, Jack, 215-257-1515, and the website, bucksmontinspections.com.
Well, thank you, Rob. And as it is Sunday, please spend time with friends and family, and I'll talk to you next week on The House Whisperer.
Absolutely, and don't forget to tune in next week at WWDB and to listen to previous programs. Or if you have any questions, visit thehousewhisperershow.com. I'm Barry Reisman. Thanks for listening.